Okay, just for, when we have people on Zoom, we have to do our, everything by vote, so, or by voice, so, Jessica, hi, you're here. Ava, you're
Hi,
here.
I'm here. Yep.
I'm here. Janice, I'm here. And
Kathy, I'm
so
here.
we do have a quorum. We are missing so far. Bill told me he probably wouldn't make it. Holly I wasn't sure about. And Elizabeth said Trevor told you he couldn't make it.
Well, he said at the last meeting he wouldn't be here.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay. So I wanted to devote a good part of this meeting to hearing from Dylan and Elizabeth about what they're doing and Elizabeth's plans for the coming year. So we'll do some very brief updates. And first of all, we need to approve the minutes from last month. So any comments, questions about the minutes? Great, a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. A second.
Oh, me.
Thank you. Okay, so. Any discussion? Okay, so, Jessica motion to approve the minutes.
Yes.
Ava?
Yes.
Okay. Me, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Okay, let's mention that.
So project updates.
We'll go through these fairly quickly. Certainly the first two, the fire station is all set to go, but they postponed it till the 1st of October to allow Efficiency Maine to complete some projects with rebates that are going to expire at the end of September. Our project is not eligible for those rebates, so they booked it for the 1st of October. The EV chargers, that's coming along. I've been in touch. Holly asked me to she wasn't able to do it. So I've been in touch with the company and, exchanging some information, and they were getting the information on the network and all that. So hopefully that will get done fairly soon. Janet signed the agreement. And Kathy, you wanted to update us. I didn't put this on the agenda, but Kathy wanted to update us on the energy coaching work.
So a new quorum started by NEEP last week for people who are new to setting up energy coaching programs. And it's perfect. There's, I think, 15 or 16 people there, mostly from New England. And I don't think there's anybody further south than Massachusetts. And one of the useful things was a lady who I have bumped in before when I attended a previous cohort that was much further along. It is the head of a program in York, which has been very successful. And she's just a very well-informed, capable person. So besides going through this process with NEEP, I asked her a question and she gave me wonderful suggestions in terms of this issue of if we could apply for some money and get some grant money, how could we equitably distribute it and not leave ourselves open to accusations of favoritism or unfairness. And she suggested 2 resources, and I've had house guests since I went to this meeting, so I haven't followed up yet, but she suggested, are there any other organizations on the island that do this? And I said, yes, there are. She said, get their criteria, their financial criteria. So I'll go to the head of IMF and get those. And she said, contact Efficiency Maine for their criteria for when they provide more than just rebates, but they provide substantial financial help. So I'll do those, and I think we would be on pretty solid ground. I don't know what the rest of you think. If we had those 2 sets of criteria and we were in accord with them, I think we could just point to that if there was any
I mean, one, and we don't have to go into this now, one concern I would have is that I just don't want to be in the position, as a group of volunteers to, asking people for their tax returns, to document their eligibility and that kind of thing. So we'll have to think through the process. But then that's room for that down the line. That's very helpful. Just for the sake of the minutes, can you say what the name is?
Northeastern Energy, what's the P? They basically provide consulting.
Partnership.
Partnership, okay.
Thank you. They provide consulting and education
Yeah, okay.
from Maine down to, ironically, West Virginia.
Yeah,
Is there, the catchment area, there are corporations, organizations like this all over the country. We fall into this one.
okay. Okay, so,
And I guess the other thing I would say is it seems prudent to proceed slowly and carefully and have, a number of coaches available and trained and, maybe even put the word out in the community that anybody else wanted to be a coach besides myself and Bill, and I can't remember whether Trevor was interested. Just do it carefully and make sure we have a good program before we put the word out. And then I think we should start out by following up on the people who had energy audits and who had window dressers.
okay, that's a good idea. Okay, before we move on to Dylan and Elizabeth, any other updates people wanted to?
Yeah, I have some sort of miscellaneous updates that I think would fit in better now.
Okay.
Actually related exactly to what you were just talking about. I had someone reach out to me, saying that he was looking for help, hopefully from the energy committee, and it sounded like an energy coaching type of thing, where he and his wife are looking to add, heating to their home, because they're usually here just for the summer, but they're starting to extend their stays on the island, and their house was built in the early 1900s, and they're looking for what would be the best system. And so it sounds like definitely an energy coaching scenario of just helping somebody walk through different options. I can maybe forward the email to you, Kathy, if you want to take a look, or to the committee.
Sure.
I told them I would touch base with everybody tonight since we have our meeting. And yeah, I don't know if there's something we want to send him immediately, like maybe an efficiency main page just to get started thinking about things, or if we want to schedule a time to sit down with him, or.
Let's talk.
Yeah, great.
Okay,
I will send
that's so good.
you guys each other's.
Yes.
And similarly, this kind of relates more to like ETIP and larger spatial planning. But as the ICC is doing their strategic planning and thinking about space use and community park and the acreage behind that park, I believe it's Philip Ladd was the name, who's looking for, he's interested in solar. Would that be a good microgrid site? Would that be better for just their personal property?
I'm not totally clear how much land that is community center owned. Because last year when we were doing our grant application, I did talk to the person who owns some of that land back there.
Was it Philip?
No, Philip doesn't own it.
Okay.
He's just, the chair of the community center.
Oh,
Is it Mike who owns that back there?
No, it
Like
wasn't it? No, it wasn't. Was it, oh gosh, Beryl?
so I'll just
Anyways.
follow up with him and see if he's already reached out in the past.
Yeah.
And then,
The person I talked to was interested in the idea of community solar. The issue he had was that he had plans at some point to put a driveway through that area. So,
okay.
that was kind of but that sort of thing, that was at least a year ago, so.
Okay.
Some of that land used to belong to Chuck Verrill, was it?
Chuck Barrel, that's
Yeah.
right, that's what I talked to, Barrel, I was thinking, never mind, yeah, that's what I talked to.
And then last but not least, I just had Sky reach out to me from Island Institute, and this will probably make more sense after I give my presentation, but, she was wondering for ETIP folks if we want to include just a brief mention of community energy planning at our next meeting on Thursday. Just to let our lab partners know that we're planning for our energy future and that any data exchange will probably end up in that plan. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
It pretty much is what we're already doing, but we
Yeah.
just stated it. Okay, great. I feel right.
Okay.
Cool. So we'll talk about that on Thursday and later, but that's all my stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the one other thing before you get started is is it next week, the market?
Yeah, farmer's
Farmer's
market.
market.
Yeah, the 20th on Thursday, 10:30 to 12:30. If anyone wants the table, I'll be there. I usually set up, or last time, I set up around 9:30 and we just had like our little posters showing what Energy Committee does. We give people a chance to sign up to be on the email list for the CERP planning, for the community energy plan. And, we hand out free cups and water bottles and it's fun. So if you want to do that, let me know.
It was fun. I did the
Yeah,
last one.
Janice was there.
Yeah, I could do 3 next Thursday. I can't remember what, something happened last.
Mhm. Alright. We handle that.
So. Yes, okay, great.
Yeah.
Would it be better if I stood up or should I?
No, that's fine.
You're fine.
We can hear you.
Well, just what?
I'll just stand up, you say.
Oh, sit over here where the camera can get you.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
And the
right,
microphone's right there, so
That way the people on the,
yeah,
computer can
you see you, yeah.
Okay, all right, so hi guys, I already introduced myself, but I'm Dylan Allen. I live on Babbage Road next to Apple's house in Katy College. So I've been working with Elizabeth for a few months now. We started working in late June, I wanna say like maybe June 28th, June 29th. And so my goal over the summer has been to establish connections with seasonal residents and learn more about their energy, their home energy usage, again, with a focus on summer residents. And so basically we had a few methods as to how we did this. We did it all with this packet. So I had a big packet with, probably 30, 40 questions on it. And it used to ask you certain questions about, your home. So it's like, are you interested in solar panels? How many, kilowatts per hour, do you use? Like, how often are you guys in the house for? Are you just a summer resident or do you kind of visit during the winter? Just questions like those to get an idea about their home energy usage. And also if they are interested in renovating or working with us. And so over the course of the summer, I reached out to about 80 people.
Wow.
So I spoke to about 80 people. And
you do that, Dylan.
I work at the Dark Arbor shop and
Hollering people in the dark.
Perfect.
but my family's pretty connected with some people. Because my dad's kind of connected with the Terra Team Club, and so I kind of use that to my advantage to reach out to family and friends and kind of people. And so of these 80 people, about 35, I reached out to about 35 by text. And then out of these 35 people, all of them responded, which is going to become important later on. And so I talked to 80 people, 35 responded on text. And so what I asked of them was, if the text would look like, hey, do you guys have any interest in helping me with my community service work in the energy community this summer? If so, I would love to stop by your house and go through this packet with you. Or if not, if you're too busy, I can send you the packet and you can just fill it out at your own time, your own convenience. And so some of them, I came to their house, some of them, they got the packet. And so I found out a few things from this, and then we'll jump into kind of what I learned, which I think is the bigger pro of this. So what I found out is pretty much everyone is pro solar. A lot of people had solar. The people who didn't have solar are interested in getting solar. I got solar. We have a house in New Jersey. I got solar, and it repaid itself off in about a year and a half. And it was like one of the best decisions we've made. I mean, it's really, really fantastic, and everyone seemed to be interested in that. basically every single house
I don't think
had.
that's a typical payback time.
No,
No,
it usually
it's-
takes us very.
it's really, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, we have a little barn, so we put it all on the roof of our barn.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it was great. All of these houses typically had, multiple renovations done. As you guys know, they're really old cottages, kind of built sometimes like, many, many decades ago. And so typically kind of these houses would be renovated and that would leave people more interested in to keep renovating and, how to be more efficient and renovate with different, things such as solar. And a lot of these houses have shifting number of occupants. So, if it was a family of three, for example, they might have like, five friends or cousins from like New York City who are coming up in the summer. So they definitely kind of have shifting number of people living in the houses. And a lot of these houses also have varying levels of insulation. Typically, when they were built without insulation. And so some of them have zero, but the ones that were renovated typically do have lots of insulation. And so when I gave people these packets, or when I kind of went to their houses, it typically took 40 minutes to complete. But the interesting thing is that out of these 80 people, there were 30 kind of non-respondents, as I'll call them. There were 35 people who texted back, and there were basically only 5 people who I actually got responses from. The people who didn't give me responses, basically were all intimidated because they had no idea how to answer any of the questions, and
Does not surprise me.
yeah. I mean, because when I kind of hand them a packet, it's like asking them a bunch of like very specific things about kind of the energy use and about like how many, like, they can answer like how many bathrooms do you have in the house? Like, okay, easy, like, 2 or 3, whatever. But it's like how many kilowatts are per square feet. It's like that's a little tricky. And so sometimes when I'd send them a packet, for context, I'll mention this beforehand. Typically, in my experience, the summer residents are people in business, typically probably finance, and when they come to Maine, the last thing that they're trying to do is work, because they want to spend time with their kids and want to be outside because in the wintertime they're working. So the last thing they want to do is open up a computer and fill out a document, especially if the document has information that they have no idea kind of how to answer it on. And so the majority, about 95% of the people I talked to, either had, no idea how to fill out the packet, unfortunately, or kind of if they did, really didn't have the time. And so I would text it to them and they'll get really overwhelmed and not complete it. We did get a few, responses, which is how I collected the data, which I shared with you guys. But the majority of people either didn't respond to me or when they did respond to me, said, okay, cool, you can come to my house and then, do it with me. I would go over with the packet, say, hello, Mr., Mrs., shake their hand, and then kind of start reading questions. And they're like, okay, no, I don't understand kind of how to answer these questions. Just send it to me later, and then I'll look through them, do a little work by myself, and then I'll send you back the packet. And then usually when I do that, I never get a packet back because the last thing they're trying to do is run around their house looking at, the power boxes and the grids and then, filling it out. And people who did it took 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, I shared this with Elizabeth because this is all important data. And we have a few like recommendations on how to make this better and how to get a lot more people to respond. And this is our opinions, but also the opinions of the summer people who I talk to. And I sometimes ask them because sometimes I was really close to the people, like my dad or my girlfriend's parents. So be like, why? Like, are you intimidated by it? And they're like, yeah, I have no idea. Or like, I didn't have the time or whatnot. And so our next steps would be maybe kind of multiple packets. So each packet kind of having 5-10 questions instead of like long, kind of long 50 question packets that have yes, no, or don't know format. And so what I'll be able to do then is kind of send that to them and it's like, oh, it's only 7 questions, easy, yes, yes, no. And then if they want to add extra notes, there's a box where they can write it down. And then I can send them the next packet like a week later and they already know it's easy, so then maybe they could do it again. And then the next one that I thought of was to have actually in the Notes app, be able to write it in the Notes app and not a physical packet, because then I could text it to them. And all 80 people who I reached out to, all of them read my message. And pretty much all of them also responded to my message. So they're willing to be on their phone and they're willing to look at my message and kind of engage a little bit with it. So if I share with them a Notes app, they'd be a lot more willing to look at that, a lot more willing to, if let's say they're making dinner and they're waiting for their kids to come downstairs to eat, I'll be like, oh, Dylan, send me this, and just take 2 minutes to fill it out without opening up their computer, running around their house and doing that. And if they click don't know, no, that's still valuable data for us to have. And so, but all that being said, personal follow-ups and invitations were very helpful to getting people to kind of engage. But I think that it's always good to have an incentive for people to do these packets. A big incentive that people knew me, and so people wanted to help me out with what I was doing. But that wasn't enough to kind of get people to take a lot of time out of their day to either learn how to answer the packets or kind of be intimidated, overcome the intimidation that the packet gave.
Yeah.
That's my data.
Well, so I think that's, it's all very interesting, and I think it's a very instructive experience as you've described it. And, I don't think, before I started working with the energy committee, that would have been too different. I think it seems like one of the sort of branch points that maybe we're starting with is, do you heat your house in the winter? Or are you planning to heat your house in the winter? Or do you shut everything down?
Yes.
Yeah, because people who shut everything down are probably not, using as much energy as people who can keep it.
Yeah,
running.
the majority of people I spoke to shut everything down.
Yeah,
A few people don't, but most people do.
yeah,
That's good to know, just in itself.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what the 40 questions were, but it seems like maybe we need to subdivide this into simple questions like, do you have LED light bulbs, that kind of thing. And maybe things now that you've broken the ice for us, do you think they would let us come in and answer the questions ourselves with them? Like have a coach come into their house and go over the stuff, or they collect how many kilowatts, or let us have their power bills to look at? Do you think that would be too much to ask for people at this point?
I mean, I think it would definitely get rid of the con of them not having a great idea how to answer the question
Right.
themselves. But I feel like to them that they might view that as, so what I'm being told is I'm just kind of letting someone come into my house and then talk to something that really doesn't have much effect on me unless I want it, but maybe I do. I don't really know if I don't right now. And so I think it's maybe a little too easy for people to pass up, especially if they don't know you or know the person coming to their
Yeah.
house.
I can see that. Do you think people are interested in an educational aspect of this? Like why we want this information? Would it help to be more explanatory about why we're doing this in the first place?
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally think so. And I think so because the people who I've explained it to have actually been like, oh, wow, that's really interesting.
Right.
And then they've engaged more, but how we kind of educate about why we do what we do, I think that's a little bit tricky. And I don't know how we can kind of get people together to focus on that.
Do you know why have you heard the whole story about why we're interested in this?
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to Elizabeth before, and she's giving me the rundown on why we're doing what we're doing. And, in my sister, for example, she wants to work in environmental law. So she's very, very passionate about the environment. I also, am too. My family is kind of switching to EV cars and they're totally with solar panels and stuff. And I can also feel the change of global warming that it has here. I mean, we see sharks. Exactly, we see
Yeah.
sharks, and so it's a real thing, and it really bothers me too, how there are a lot of, kind of large political figures who spew nonsense about how it's not a real thing. And so that's actually what got me interested in it. And so I do have some passion for getting people educated about it, because I think that if we educate people about why it is that we're doing this, it'll educate themselves too about kind of the importance of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Which I think it would be good if everyone. And,
Well, you just can't imagine what a big step it is for our group to start to make connections in the summer community. It's fantastic. So thank you so much for doing that.
yeah, my pleasure. I think it was super fun.
I
and
think
love
it's
talking.
really interesting, not to pick on your dad, who I know and like. But isn't it interesting that even he was not super enthused about filling out the packet? And he's obviously energy knowledgeable if he's put solar panels on your place.
Yeah,
So
he-
that's an
Well,
interesting example.
Exactly, well, I think I think one thing you have to realize, and like I said, I don't think I'm too different from a lot of those other people, is that people don't look that closely. You know, they may look at the, comparison year over year, oh God, it's a lot bigger this year than it was last year. But they're not thinking in terms of kilowatt hours and
Right, the technical stuff.
how much power is this appliance drawing versus that one, yeah, the technical stuff.
Well, and,
Just,
if they have
all that
a
stuff.
good caretaker, they might not be even looking at their bills.
That's true.
I think that goes for
Or-
the majority
or-
of people. Don't actually. I honestly would assume that most people don't even look at their bills. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's.
Well, maybe, I mean, are you done for the summer, or are you gonna do more of these, or? what?
No, so I'm totally, I'm totally up for doing more. Next summer, I want to keep doing this.
Yay.
For sure. I think it'd be
That's
great. I'm a little bit disappointed with the lack of data I had, but it's tricky. And I was honestly very surprised by the amount of people who didn't know a lot about their own house.
Okay.
And
It's important information in
Yes.
and
Yeah.
of itself.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that means we have
Yeah.
to start at a different.
I think you-
spot
Yes.
for explaining things.
But I think you learned a lot, right?
Yeah.
yeah, no, totally.
So,
Yeah,
yay.
yeah, no, that's a score for sure. And that's something we could build off
Do you
of.
think it would help if we had some kind of little handout that said, this is why we need this information, this is what we're gonna be
Yeah.
asking you, do you think that
I
would?
mean, maybe at the top of kind of the next packet, or kind of how we phrase it, the next list of questions that we give people at the top of it, we'd be like, disclaimer, the reason that we like literally just being super genuine, like the reason we're handing this to you is because we care about the environment, period. Next sentence, and then that people might take that really seriously.
And we can, Islesboro can't get to net zero without the summer community participating.
Yeah,
I mean, we need
So-
the summer community with us.
yeah,
I don't want to invade anybody's privacy, but we may continue some of this outreach when you're done, so it would be helpful to, we don't have to make it public, of course, but if Elizabeth at least had a list of the people that you had contacted.
yeah,
Because I don't wanna call somebody up and they go, oh yeah, I talked to Dylan,
yeah, no, but you can do that privately.
Yeah,
I think
it's,
as long
him
as-
and I have a shared Google Drive that we use this summer, but I'll kind of like transfer it over. A lot of it's like notes and stuff, so I'll transfer
Yeah.
it.
I'm imagining a deal where everybody who completes the shortened, simpler packet gets an ice cream cone for Bill,
Yeah,
dipped by Dylan.
yeah. No, yeah, I mean, we've actually, a potential idea that Elizabeth and I, kind of had was that we'd set up a table either outside of or inside of, depending on Bill's mood that day, the Dark Arbor shop. And it's a stand with got a big sign saying, Islesboro Energy Committee, and then maybe a sign in the front saying, this is for the environment. And then just someone sitting there, a big QR code, and then just and then when people kind of come up being like, oh, hello, just being like, hey, do you mind filling this out? And then, explain to them why it is that we
Yeah.
do what we do. And then maybe we could be like, oh, and another sign right next to it say, if you fill it out, you get an ice cream cone. And I think that's actually really not very difficult to do. I mean, if we think about it, that's 80 people. The code is $5, so that's $400 that we're talking about. I mean, I don't think that's too, big of an ask, especially if,
We could use our
We
e-tip
could
money.
use the programming money and
Yeah.
pay half, like ask if they would donate half and we pay half,
yeah, and I think that a lot of people would actually do that. For sure.
Incentivize it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Do you think a thank you note sent to their house from our committee to them for participating would be
Oh,
politically correct or?
I think I think that might kind of be like a warm hug, I guess, after they complete it. But I think to incentivize people to do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about two different things, like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that could be great. Or like a little postcard saying, thank you that we hand out.
well, I'm thinking, we say, thank you for participating, this was the opening, and this is what we
yeah.
would love you to participate further.
Yeah, no, that could be great. And I can also deliver that to people. Just put that in the mail, drive my Jeep around. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So I think incentives for people to give us this information would include shorter lists, possibly shorter multiple lists spread out over time. Incentivized with ice cream. That might be good. Incentivized with information on why it is we do what we do and why we're kind of
Yeah.
collecting this information. I think that's all great. And if we could find out a solution that includes all, I think it's not too crazy to say that we can maybe reach all 80, because every single one of these people, all 80 people contacted me after I contacted them. So, people are on their phones and they're, kind of have some energy to do this. And so I think it's not too crazy that with the right incentives, we could definitely, make stuff happen for sure.
I think you're probably right about, just a simpler, and maybe what you suggest sounds like a really good idea of starting with a very short, simple questionnaire. And maybe there's some branch points in there, like people who aren't, heating their house during the winter. There might be just a few follow-up questions about, well, do you have a swimming pool? Do you have air conditioning? Things that would, ramp up power use during the summer.
Yeah.
Then the other group, you sort of have more focused questions about.
Yeah, 100%. And some people we spoke to really knew a lot about their house too, and gave us like, huge amounts of data. And so, but some people were kind of, were like, I don't know. And that's fine because that's kind of the norm. And so, but that's still good data for people to
That's
know.
data in itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, if
So
we,
the people that say, I don't know, we have an opportunity to help them know.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. But everyone was interested in solar. That's another big point. Everybody was interested in that.
That's great.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thank you.
right. Come on. Yeah. You guys are clapping online, yes.
And you want to stay again, but also totally fine.
Okay, I have a Zoom at 6. I didn't do it, okay? I can see maybe stick around for 5 minutes. Okay.
All right.
So Elizabeth, you're up.
Perfect
Yeah.
segue into now we need to make a plan for the future. So thank you, Dylan, for your work this summer, and we're going to talk a little bit about in this presentation how we can really use community engagement to move energy goals forward. A lot of these goals are interrelated and they can't happen if a lot of people don't have buy-in, they're not aware. See you later, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you.
Guys. Have a nice rest of your day.
Yeah, so with that, I'm gonna cover what I'll be doing in the second year of my fellowship, which is writing a community energy resilience plan. or SERP is what we're gonna call it from now on, because that's too many words. So today I want to cover what is a SERP, what is this type of plan, and how we could use it on Islesboro. I'll give you some examples of other communities that have done similar projects to this. I'll talk about what work we've already completed as a committee that sort of frames why we need to plan for the future and what that planning can look like. And I'm also gonna define some focus points that I've identified of scope of work that we could do in the next year, and have an opportunity for us all to share our ideas and priorities. You might have seen some of the posters around the room, so we'll get to play with those. And then lastly, map out a tentative timeline of the next year's worth of work so that we can get this done. So what is a SERP? We said it's a community energy resilience plan. And it's, I think in this context, best if we frame it as a roadmap for our energy projects for the next 3 to 5 years on Islesboro. And it would really help us transition our ETIP work into tangible next steps for the island's future. So how can we use what we get from ETIP and take it and make it into actionable steps for how we'll implement things like a microgrid and other important projects? So some examples of community energy resilience plans or variations of them, we have one from Southern Maine. And I know it's kind of small, but I wrote out that they centered these statements or these plans around 3 central goals. They would have these different goals, and this will also be in the Google Drive, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Just don't move closer to us.
Hi here.
Zone out.
Yeah. I'm just adjust so I can see you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Yeah, with these plans, so like with the non-blocking. Yeah, no, this one, okay, I want to see them. So with Southern Maine, they wanted to reduce outages and how often they were happening. They wanted to improve how they communicated with residents during outages. You know, this is a good example of a regional plan. They're talking across municipalities and how they want to adjust for the future, given the grid situation. Then there's communities like in Puerto Rico, Castañer, where they wanted to decrease energy vulnerabilities. They wanted to make sure that people were informed about energy concepts, kind of like what we just talked about with Dylan, and have a more reliable grid overall, which I think for Puerto Rico, the island context definitely resonates with us. And then similarly, Molokai in Hawaii had a community energy resilience action plan is what the A stands for there. And they were really focused on renewable energies, and it was very action oriented of how to get to 100% renewable. And again, the island context there definitely relates to us. So those are examples of things that communities have produced in terms of their plans, and often they're oriented towards just looking towards the future and outlining specific projects with different action steps to do them. So when we think about what Islesboro has done, this is a slide that made and we showed at the summer informational meeting a couple weeks ago, or I guess a week or so ago. And it shows that we've completed all these different municipal projects. So we've done insulation upgrades, LED lighting, heat pumps, rooftop solar, and EV chargers at a variety of these buildings. Some of them got all those upgrades, some of them got some of them, or just one. I think that shows that we've done a lot. And so now it's a matter of how are we going to move forward with them. We've also done like the fire station smart thermostat project, the EV fire suppression equipment and trainings, the transfer station also got a heat pump. So that definitely has an impact on the energy usage of these buildings and their needs moving forward. So how do we plan for the municipality and for the larger community? So with all that in mind, I want to ask you to brainstorm, what does an appropriate output look like for a community energy resilience plan for us? So I'm kind of asking you, like, who are we writing for? Is it going to be just for us to use in this committee? Is it for the select board to understand our priorities? Is it for the whole island to read and understand, or maybe even people outside of the island? So thinking about audience and to what extent we want to write to that. And then also, what are the most important projects that we want to cover? So I'll give you a moment to think about those, and then I'll share what I've identified from our last couple of meetings and my work so far. So just think, stop talking. So what I kind of came up with, at least in terms of recurring themes that I've noticed in our meetings, is we're obviously really interested in planning a microgrid. That's what a lot of ETIP is about. We're interested in community solar, like we just talked about that right before Dylan's presentation of different land and like ownership and how people might want to use it and what kind of contact has maybe happened so far, but getting that as a functional program. We've also identified transportation energy and the future of EVs on the island, or rather kind of beefing up the infrastructure for them to exist more frequently and for year-round folks. And then also the energy coaching and the sort of residential umbrella of connecting people with rebates, resources, insulation, anything kind of under that umbrella. So that's what I identified. And now I want to ask us to think about like what that would look like written out in a plan. This is just a sample. This is not what I'm actually going to do. But in terms of other SERPs and the way that they write them, you typically would have your introduction. So I would say, you know, here's Islesboro, where we're located, our sort of history with our power cable. We've done different projects with ETIP. We've done this municipal projects. And so what do we want to do now? We want to establish a roadmap of energy resilience project for the next 3 to 5 years. And then SERPs typically have a community engagement section. They talk to people, residents, you know, officials in the municipality like our select board, and they host events and they say, you know, come learn about microgrids or come learn about XYZ solar. And it keeps people involved during the draft process. They track all the different things that people say and like what themes emerge from that. And then they go through and actually plan out the project. So in this case, say microgrids are really important. So then we plan out, you know, here's how we would tentatively want to finance this, how we want to get this on the ground. And then go through for each of the goals that we identify. And then of course we would have a lot of supplementary information. So all the data that I've been working through the last few years will kind of funnel into this project and be available for committee use, but also publicly. And, you know, maps, all that good stuff. So thinking about our priorities and our audiences, here's where we get to participate. So with our question, the first question I asked you was thinking about, or one of the questions I asked you is what are the big topics we want to cover in the SERP? So those were the 4 that I came up with. I would like you to rank the importance of these projects. So in the way back of the room, I've written out those 4 projects that I outlined, and I'm going to give you all sticky notes 1 to 4, and you can put 1 next to the one that you think is most important, 2 next to the one that's less important, but you know, cascading order.
People online too.
Yeah,
Probably
if-
do it in the chat.
Yeah, if you guys want to do it in the chat, or if you want to text me if you want to be anonymous, then I'll tally you up. So we'll take
So
about 5
where do you
minutes.
put in things, so like there are things we talked about as sort of long-term,
Mhm.
like, people have thrown out
Look
the
at
idea
each of
at some point of the town purchasing all the streetlights. Which now I guess are owned by the power company. Now that,
Well,
you're right, it has not been the highest priority of the things we talked about.
right, so this is to hone in on the big projects
Okay.
and map them out. So yeah, like a street light, if that's something that we think should be in the plan, that's a big priority for us, then we can write that on that sticky note next to the one over there,
Yeah.
to kind of show that that's something that we should plan out, or if that's something that would be more internally in the committee and not necessarily crucial to the next future, then maybe not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is a really stupid question.
No.
Yes, it is. How are you distinguishing between the microgrid and the community solar?
Yeah, that is a good question, and I think that's something we should flesh out. And maybe Kreska, if you want to speak to what extent would the community solar feed into the microgrid, or would that be a separate plan? Like, I think timing would be a big part of that. It depends on if we can finance and get a microgrid going sooner rather than later. I don't know.
Yeah. Our prior conversations, we had sort of said, well, they would be connected, but potentially community solar was something we could achieve faster.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The other thing with the light, the residential energy, part of that is reducing our demand.
Right.
So the streetlights might actually fall under something like that.
That could,
Yeah, I mean, we say residential energy, but that's all we really mean is municipal energy.
Right,
Right,
right.
really. And then a good way of putting it, yeah, never thought of that, yeah.
And then.
Energy outside of the municipal needs.
So you want us to go through this?
I think, did Fresco, did you want to say anything before we move around? Or no?
Oh, just that, yes, the microgrid could technically be achieved without the community solar. But when they're together, it makes the microgrid a lot more valuable. So you could always do the microgrid before the community solar, but also community solar is a way to get the savings and the value to people faster and get people engaged faster than the microgrid. So there's like so many dimensions of this that you could think about in each of these categories for community engagement and value. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe in a plan, there would be different scenarios, like scenario one is if we do microgrid without community solar, scenario two, they exist together, scenario three, like different kind of versions of that with steps for each,
Okay.
yeah, so, and I'm
Pros and
gonna,
cons, what we're gonna do with it.
right, and I'm gonna rank as well, so it's anonymous, we won't know.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, if you wanna write anything else that's floating around in your head, please do so at that sticky note next to the one.
Oh, I
back.
see, you did that, yeah.
And then, yeah, let's do that first and then we'll.
Yeah, it's hard to prioritize, it's not just. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, priorities are when enough community members get excited and engaged enough about to move forward. So Kreska is saying the priority should be set by community members, not necessarily, just here,
Right.
yes, yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, that's very important.
Good point, yeah.
Chat is. And then Kathy, if you're finished, I can take your notes.
I did more.
Yeah, was that better? Maybe. So I'm gonna tally all these up, and while I do that, if you wanna go over to the poster over there, and then, or record in the chat, and say, and we'll read Ava's comment. What audiences do you think are most important for us to have in mind as we write this plan? So general public, select board, or IEC internally. So feel free to mark with a check mark or a star, whatever you want on those over there, or we can lay it down on the desk, whatever is easier.
Yeah. My checks up, yeah. It marks up on her. On the other, yeah. What is called?
No.
First, have we ever done any of this kind of prioritizing at community meetings? It feels like. No, I don't think we have.
Yeah, I mean, we could collect what people voiced the most interest in based on, for example, when we had that meeting at the ICC about the planning, and it was like last December or two Decembers ago. We could actually evaluate what people told us and incorporate that.
And in the surveys, did people prioritize anything? It feels like we have asked that.
Not prioritize, but whether or not they would be interested in each of these aspects, except for microgrids. For some reason, we never put microgrids in the survey.
I think the surveys were more about individual homes. So we did ask, how are you interested in solar? Yeah. But these
Yeah, we
questions-
also, yeah.
These questions, yes, we have brought up at some of the meetings that we've had, right, you can sort of gauge interest by the questions people ask, but that's sort of not necessarily a quantitative type of survey. So
The other thing which is a little bit off topic, but in my house, I've got this little gadget called a Ting, Ting, that my insurance company wants me to use because it monitors the electric service in your house to make sure everything looks safe. And there was actually a brownout on the island during the big heat. And that's the first time I've been aware that the heat was bad enough that we didn't have enough electricity to go around. So there was actually a brownout.
back at the end of June,
No, in August, like this past week.
And this past week wasn't as hot as it was.
Well,
There's more people here.
maybe it was the week before anyway. It was the week in August that I just got the update for. And we had a brownout.
More people here.
Yeah, there's more people.
Did your box tell you that?
It was recorded at my house.
It told you that there was less energy available.
It said there was a brownout. They used the term brownout. So, I mean, if that's gonna start happening, that's all the more reason.
I wonder if that was the day or when there were a bunch of people posting on Facebook about how their lights would flicker.
Yeah, probably.
That was probably it.
I didn't bring my,
That's all right.
I didn't bring it in. But anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
that's another reason to really, start upgrading our system is, if it's gonna get hotter and hotter and hotter, and we're gonna need more and more power.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, we'll just keep moving along. And Ava, thank you for your comment talking about microgrid and energy resilience would be the highest priority because reliable locally generated energy is especially important for the island community. Then explain residential and community solar are important because they help residents reduce energy costs and make renewable energy more accessible. And then transportation being considered but that it should come after addressing electricity and residential needs. So transportation is important, but those things are a bigger priority. So this is really helpful to see because it can help us plan our community engagement and what we sort of educate and put out to people, and then can get their responses and see like, how is this a priority for you too, as Casca noted. So from our little activity here, we have community solar being the first priority overall. Then the microgrid planning, then residential energy and energy coaching and helping reduce costs. And then lastly, transportation energy is how these rank out.
There were a couple fours on the microgrid.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there were a couple fours. Yeah, so
Very interesting. I
No,
wouldn't
we-
guess that.
yeah. No, we only have a few minutes. I'll try and keep us moving along. But as we think about the process for this, or does anyone want to give feedback on this?
Do you wanna hold it up so they can see?
Maybe I'll put it in the chat, would be easier. Would that be helpful for you guys?
You all wanna see what it looks like? What, the sticker?
I'm asking the chat.
I'm fine with that.
Yes, that would be helpful. Thank you.
You see it?
So I'm just gonna type it in the chat for them.
Okay.
So they can see. And of course, this is just our group today. You know, we also have people missing.
Well, except it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, it's the spread, I think that's very interesting. We don't have a lot
Okay,
of-
I'll take a picture of
We
this.
don't have a
and
lot
put
of
it-
agreement in it.
Yes.
It's not uniform, yeah.
Right. It's not only not uniform, it's considering the small number of people, there's pretty good spread.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe the camera can sort of pick it up. Don't wanna take a look, but I'll post the picture on the drive. All right, we're gonna have to speed run through this just a bit, but, thank you for participating. That's super helpful to just at least start the discussion. And so in terms of the process itself, of how the plan would get written, basically it'll be kind of like I said, an accumulation of data along with engagement and public outreach events, activities with the kids through the ICC and that part of my fellowship to all be documented and then drafted into a plan that can be proposed to the select board. So I've talked with Janet Anderson about the process of proposing a plan and getting that implemented. And it's usually, as long as there's not a financial obligation for the town, it'll pass without issue. But I think the more, communication that we have with the select board about our priorities, and then, of course, these things will eventually become budgetary concerns, that it's not so much a surprise. So with that, I've laid out the next year's worth of work through a Gantt chart, kind of showing that there's lots of different things happening all at the same time that all contribute to the same project. So for the first 6 months ahead, I've kind of divided the work into project management tasks, so sort of the general outreach and coordination with like the select board and internally with the community. Then data collection, so understanding all the municipal data we have, our surveys that we've done, and then what other data we collect through outreach and engagement. Then having the outreach and engagement tasks, so where we're having events and working with the students to help get their input and, plan from there. And then lastly, the documentation and analysis, or not lastly, but after that, where that's kind of funneling those first 3 into noticing the trends, seeing priorities, what arises, and then actually drafting and writing the plan. We'll edit and then have an iterative process there. But in terms of project management in the next 6 months, I want to make sure that we can establish stakeholder connections and establish a schedule for me to just be updating the select board quarterly. Collecting data by within the next 3 months, understanding all the data and gaps that we have at the municipal level and establishing a workflow so that we can keep up with data, moving forward into the next year and beyond. Just at the municipal like bill tracking, and then also like our residential energy, understanding what we have and how to keep track of it moving forward. And then also for outreach and engagement, I would love for us to have at least 2 to 3 events in the next year that are public facing and where we can collect a lot of feedback from people and also provide educational opportunities for them. So scheduling those out. And then seeing what people say, recording everything, and then turning that into a draft of an actual plan with action steps for each project. And then the last 6 months will kind of emulate that same process. I can't get too into all these in terms of timing, but just in terms of our next immediate steps, I'm housing everything in the Google Drive. So this presentation is in there. I have a stakeholder spreadsheet that's in there. And that's going to be in the Energy Hub drive. You go to the projects folder and then you'll find the SERP. And in the next month, this is sort of what I've identified as my next steps, but I'm happy to talk about other immediate next steps in the next month if anyone wants to get in contact about that. But mapping out our stakeholders, it'll be really similar to what we've done for the ETIP process for those of you who've been involved in that. But just reaching out to key people and seeing if they're interested in knowing about this project so that then we can personally invite them to our events and make sure that they're coming and engaged in our conversation about energy projects in the future. And then I'll be developing sort of a strategy for that, basically compiling all of the names, emails that we get so that we have a flow of communication that's constant and makes sense for everybody. And if you want to be a part of that, the most immediate step would be the farmer's market next week. If you want to start having FaceTime with people and practicing kind of giving the mini pitch of our work. Not that you all don't already do that all the time in community, but then I'll also be scheduling activities with the kids with Candace at ICC and figuring out our sort of fall kids club plans and what we can do to engage middle and high schoolers. And obviously we'll frame it quite a bit differently for younger audiences. And I would love for us to have our first community event on the calendar with starting to plan what that would look like.
And that would be in October or early November.
Hopefully, yeah. And then I'm trying to get all of the data in the Google Drive up to date and hopefully ready to go for some like preliminary analysis by next month. So I've already gone over our time, so I'm sorry for that, but thank you all. And we can talk about more specifics if we want to set a meeting or anything. I know that we're already over, but thank you.
I personally feel like we probably need to have another sort of strategic planning. Maybe not as a formal, committee meeting, but I mean, this tells me we're still not completely in sync about what we all think we should be doing. And how to get community input into that. I think we really, based on what happened with Dylan, where, you know, the packet was kind of overwhelming to the people that got it. I think we have to really think about how we're going to get community participation. And
So you're talking about strategic planning for the community event or for just all of it together?
for how we're going, well, if Elizabeth's gonna be able to do this SERP, and we wanna have community meetings, we really have to have a plan for what information we're giving and what information we wanna get back.
Yeah.
And I mean, we need to do that sooner rather than later if we're gonna try to plan something in October.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Sure. No, I think you're right. I think that makes sense. And I think it can be done outside of a regular.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it can be a planning session or a workshop or something, whatever term we have to use, so we're gonna have to.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of workshopping, honestly.
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe we can table from here and then at the next committee meeting, I can kind of give the 101 of everything we covered for folks who weren't here and lay out some of the
Committee
steps.
meeting will be September.
right,
So you want to have the meeting that Janet's talking about just. before then?
Absolutely, yeah, I'm just thinking about committee wise.
yeah, yeah, we really.
So
Gosh,
I'll
it's
send
so
out.
hard.
I know.
I know, I have guests coming in.
So do I. Well, I mean, I guess all summer, so.
So I think the sweet spot has to be definitely at least a week, if not 2 or 3 before Thanksgiving. Once you get close to Thanksgiving, it's, you know, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, nothing's gonna happen.
So, yeah, early November is probably a good time, or end of October.
Yeah, so how about I send out a when to meet or like a poll and we
Yeah.
can figure out when we'll meet to have our workshop. And then we can do all the calendar fun stuff at that time. Not right now, we're already done.
Yeah, I pretty much. Anyways, house guests between now and our next.
I know,
meeting, and I can
I
carve
know.
out time for a
So
meeting.
the question I'm running through my mind, is it better to like plan like short information sessions, like on what's a microgrid, what's community solar? Why do we need to reduce our consumption, and then have a community, you know, discussion about prioritizing, or is it,
Right.
I mean, I'm just brainstorming,
Yeah, no,
I don't have any answer, so. I mean, does anybody have a gut feeling?
I mean, the trust has done some of that, of having like a monthly breakfast type of thing, but I don't think there have been that many, I mean, it's a small fee in there.
The trust, what
I
trust?
mean, like Chloe, Jewel,
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right, about the,
yeah.
So, I mean, that September thing we did last year was really well attended, so we could have 3 short medium presentations. One, this is a microgrid, this is a solar, this is how we reduce, and we could do it that way.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, and then let people know this
And
is
then
just,
ask for their thoughts.
That's what I was thinking.
yeah. How does that sound to you, Chris? I know we need to think about this a little bit.
Well, I think the first step is to plan a
Right,
workshop
right,
around this meeting between now and the next
right, before September.
committee meeting, which may be challenging to come up with a date. So you're gonna send out a poll or, you know.
I mean, it would be right after Labor Day weekend, really. Things should slow down after that.
Right. I have a couple of days.
I know.
Between house gifts.
Also, we can send you notes, like,
Yeah.
if it's too much, we don't have to
Yeah,
force
no,
you to
no,
be it.
that's fine. No, I mean, I can always leave my house guests for an hour. So.
And I guess it would be good to come up with the pluses and minuses of each project. In what order to do them in,
Yeah.
which is a lot. I mean, that's a
So
lot.
Elizabeth, did you have more that you wanted to cover?
That was it, and I know that we're already over time, so I want to be respectful of that, and I apologize for going over time. So yeah, I think we have our next step, I think this is good that it shows us that we have a really large task in front of us. And it is gonna take all hands on deck, and it is gonna take like a lot of continuous planning in order to produce this. So keep an eye out for the next email, and we'll get that going, and working in earnest. Soon. Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, thinking about options. I agree. I thought that meeting we had September last year was well attended and pretty well received too. And that was the one that had sort of short,
Yeah,
multiple short presentations.
so the biggest complaint of that was that there were just too many things in it.
Yeah.
Nobody got enough time to really.
Right.
Um.
And some people went over their time.
What happened?
Yeah. All right, so I guess we have to have a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait a second, before we do that, I just had one other thing, for the committee, go back here, we saw an opening and one person so far has, expressed an interest. I don't know if everybody here knows Daniel Froling. He lives up off of Bluff Road, he did the window dressers, thing, and he is interested in becoming a member. He was away this week, not able to come to the meeting today. So but I would invite him to the next meeting. So just to let everybody know. Yeah. So what we've usually done in the past is had people come to a meeting first, meet everybody, hear what's going on. And, you know, people can meet him, and then, if they're still interested and committee's in agreement, we forward their name to select nomination, I guess. If yeah, if anybody has objections, they can talk about it they can talk to me privately. All right, motion to adjourn. Second. Okay, vote, Cressica,
Yes.
Ava,
Yes.
me, yes, Janice.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we are adjourned, and the next meeting is September 8th.
Oh my gosh, that's so soon.
That's what?
So soon. Oh.